a society today that does not want its children or its people to know the truth about history. I'm going to tell you a story about just how this came to be 50 years ago. 50 years ago today, there was a Supreme Court hearing known as the Engel versus Vitale case. And it was about the separation of church and state, and it started with some parents protesting that there's prayer and biblical studies in their schools, and there's forcing the religion. So, the Supreme Court ruled in their favor, but it is still a debated topic, and it goes back and forth. But there's still an agenda. It's an agenda to promote ignorance among God's people, like Hosea 4:6 says, "For my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." Let's look at some major historical figures that we look up to today, but have a different story than we've been told. George Washington. Yes, he was an honest man, but he was not a deist, like many people say. There are paintings of him praying before wars. There are letters of observation of soldiers and pastors for how godly this man was. Abraham Lincoln. He grew up in an abusive Christian home. And he left Christianity for a time, but he eventually came back. And a minister named Reverend James Smith was the one that he turned to. And he turned to him before he became president. Benjamin Franklin, interestingly, is one of the only ones that they call Christian nowadays, but he was actually the least religious out of all the founding fathers. Let's look at stories of how God has interfered with America. All of these dates. September 1774, the First Continental Congress. They prayed for the very first beginning. The Battle of Long Island, August 1776. That had a big movement of God with the fog. The fog came from God. December 1776, the crossing of the Delaware and the Battle of Trenton. October 1777, the Battle of Saratoga. October 1778, the Battle of Yorktown, and pretty much every war when the Americans won. But there's something that played into the fact of how the Americans won. It was because Congress declared a nationwide fast among the colonies. Similarly, Abraham Lincoln pronounced a nationwide fast during the Civil War. It's interesting, when you look at the timeline, right where the fast hits was when all of their losses were, but as soon as that fast happened, all of their wins were after. Who initiated the Revolutionary War? 2 Baptist pastors, a reverend, and many others, hundreds of others, that served in politics, in influencing the founding fathers, and many more. Let's look at the documentation and the people behind it. Richard Stockton, Charles Carroll, Benjamin Rush, John Witherspoon, Robert Treat Paine, Samuel Adams, John Hancock. These people are just a handful of the Christians among the founding fathers behind the Declaration and the Constitution and Congress. Pretty much everybody else had their same belief, that they held Christianity very important in their view. In 1854, the U.S. House Judiciary Committee had this quote that said, "Christianity was the religion of the founders of the Republic, and they expected it to remain the religion of their descendants." Interesting thing to think about. Let's look at the documents themselves. The Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. The Bible verses quoted, the root verses for their grievances, you can find about 27 of those. Now in the Constitution, God is mentioned 200 times. Not God himself, but providence. Providence is what they called God at that time. And about 34% in that Constitution is Bible verses. The conclusion is It's important to maintain correct knowledge, especially in this day and age where whoever controls the past controls the future. There are some truth scriptures here: John 8:32, Ephesians 6:14, Philippians 4:8, John 3:21, Jeremiah 29:13, John 14:6, all talking about how you need to find truth, seek it out, it's going to set you free, it's how you stand firm. That is important in today's time. Call to action. We need to find the truth. We need to dig deeper. And we can't let ourselves fall back because we did not dig deep enough. And when we dig deep enough and we find it, we need to tell other people and spread the word. So what can you do about investigating? Thank you for attending this presentation. I hope you have a great rest of your night.